So we've got number 1, assume it's dangerous. Number 2, keep your finger off the trigger till it's time to go. And number 3 now, which is a huge one, and this is one where a lot of actors are going to get given away as not knowing what they're doing. Keep it pointed in a safe direction at all times. Now what that means depends on your situation. If you're at a shooting range, that means downrange. You've got a berm back there, you've got a very clear direction of it. As long as it is that direction, it is safe. Keep it that direction. Now if you're not in a shooting range, if you're on a set, if you're on the street or something like that, or in a house, for the most part, down is going to be your safe direction, because then it's just going to hit the ground and nothing else. Up, sometimes to a lesser degree, and there are some tactical situations where you might have your rifle or carbine up and going up over people's heads instead of down, but for the most part, down's going to be our way to go.
Level to some of the cooler, more up-to-date stuff.
It's not more extravagant than the second one.
Terrible gun safety.
Anytime that there is something that you don't want to aim at, just drop it down. So we've got our out, we've got kind of our low ready, and we've got our just hanging out and keeping it down, right? This is the safe position to keep it in when you're not using it. Straight down. Sometimes I'll do a sort of a leapfrog exercise with actors using these laser pointers, but just on rubber guns, not on real guns. But so that there's always somebody who's got that red dot on the spot on the wall, and a partner crossing in front or behind, and so somebody's got to go down and back up and down and back up, down and back up, to make sure that they're not flagging their partner as they cross. And you can go this way, you can go that way, I don't really care, right? But the point is, do not point this at somebody. I don't want to see that red dot touching anybody's foot, touching anybody's back, touching any back of anybody's head. It does not point at anything you don't want to put a hole in. Now, another thing about keeping it pointed in the right direction. You may go to a public shooting range, and I've been to some where you go into the booth and you look over on the left-hand side, and there's holes in the wall on the left-hand side of the booth. Now that's a little sketchy, but I know exactly how it happens, and it's because most people are right-handed, and a lot of the controls are on the left side of the frame to be operated with your thumb. The safety release is often there, the slide stop, the takedown lever, the magazine release. So when people are not sure what they're doing, and they've been shooting at the range, they're more likely to turn it to the left while they try and figure out what's going on with all this stuff, holding it in their right hand. And if it accidentally goes off while they're holding it this way, it's going straight to their left. So when I'm at a public range, and if I feel at all nervous about the other people on the range, my best place to be is the far right-hand side, because that's where I'm least likely to get shot by somebody who's sitting there going, hey, how does this thing work? And pointing it off to the side. Just a little tidbit there. Now, granted, you might have a southpaw who's holding it left-handed and who's trying to figure out this stuff and pointing it the other way. A little less likely, though, statistically speaking. With a front-venting blank gun or with a real gun, obviously, this is the direction we got to worry about. That's where it's dangerous. With a top-venting blank gun or a side-venting blank gun, that gets a little more complicated. With a real gun, I can keep it pointed down range if there is a range, or at the floor are kind of my two main options in terms of safety. With a top-venting blank gun, those are usually okay as well. Up is a bad idea because then it's right into my face. But down here may or may not work if what I'm doing is having someone pass right in front of me, because now here is the direction where I really got to worry about, not down there. I kind of have to track both, the imaginary threat and the real threat, which is up this way. So it gets a little more complicated when you're staging top-venting blank guns. And that's also true of just some of the basic handling technique. So you notice a lot of real firearms will have texturing, not just for slingshot loading this way, but also for reaching over the top or grabbing towards the front, right? And that can be a great way to get a good, secure, in-close racking action going there. If I have a top-venting blank gun, and this is a Bruni Glock that vents straight out the top, if I do that, I'm basically covering the vent. So I'm essentially putting my hand right over what's the equivalent of the muzzle, right? So that's not the best way to rack these, right? So for any of these, I'm going to want to do this, what we call a slingshot, where you're holding the back and pull back that way. When you're first starting out, I like the slingshot anyway because it lets me really see in that chamber and see what's happening. I can see if it's loading around. I can see if it's loaded or if it's unloaded, or if it's trying to do something weird like double feed or whatever. I can watch that round go in and know for sure that it's seated. Don't try and help it. Pull back and let it go. But you can watch it as it goes and kind of track what's going on there. Now, for movies, obviously, we have to sometimes be able to change that rule because we've got to be able to point guns at people. So for that to happen, I have to know that it's not dangerous. I have to know that either this is a completely inert rubber prop, that it is a plugged barrel blank firing gun, and we have hearing protection and everything, that it's a gas blowback that has 0 BBs in it, that it is a completely unloaded or just using snap caps that are very obviously snap caps or something like that, so that I know there is no way this is going to put a hole in the back of my head. That's true of the person pulling the trigger. It's true of the person downrange. If Brandon Lee and the crew on the set of The Crow had done that, he'd still be alive, right? So don't just blindly trust the person who hands you a prop. And if you're borrowing a firearm, if you're chatting at a gun store and someone slides something over the counter, don't just assume it's safe. Always assume it's dangerous. Don't put your finger on the trigger unless you actually want it to go boom, or you need to drop the hammer for some reason, and you've already verified that it's not loaded. And keep it pointed in a safe direction. Right? Police departments used to have these, I don't know if they still do or not, used to have these clearing barrels for the place where, as a part of taking down your Glock, you'd empty it out, right? And then you'd pull the trigger to decock it, but you'd want to aim it in these clearing barrels when it did, so that if for some reason there happened to be a round in there, it would discharge in a safe direction. I've heard of gun shops that have sort of a jar of shame with rounds in it for people who said, I swear I thought it was unloaded. Right. Keep it pointed in a safe direction, just in case you're wrong about the other two things. If it does go boom, at least it doesn't kill anything important.